I work on a child adolescent psych unit for about 14 years. So it's a pretty stressful job. My background, I was actually adopted at 6 months old from Colombia. Grew up in the US, had a pretty intense childhood trauma, some abuse. So in the last, I'd say pretty much my whole life, I've carried, I think, a lot of trauma with me, not knowing it was trauma. And into my adult life, just learning about the adoptee trauma that we suffer, and of course, childhood abuse of any kind, and learning more about it through therapy, reading books, going through typical therapy. I did a lot of work on myself and found that it helped, but I also found that kind of traditional things like breath work and visualizations and things that worked for everybody else didn't quite kick in for me. I couldn't notice it, I couldn't feel it, it made no difference. So in the last few years, started feeling pretty stuck with general therapy because I always had kind of like a ball of like heaviness, I describe in my chest, kind of like anxiousness. I could go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly, always imagining things happening, and lots of trouble with interpersonal relationships in my life that I believe spurred from trauma. So I began kind of looking for other answers that could possibly help, and also always kind of wondered before I knew that Stella existed. I wish there was something that could kind of take the edge off of that trauma. I kind of had a feeling that if that could happen, I could use the other modalities to continue to help myself. So when I heard about Stella, I was kind of amazed and very happy. So when I did first hear about the Stella procedure, it was from a fellow adoptee who works in the VA, and she had it herself, and I was just so curious and so interested. It was a little scary at first because she was telling me it's like an injection in your neck, and I think whenever anybody hears that, it's pretty scary and that's normal, I would say. But looking into it, I did a little bit of research. I had a few nurses look into it at my job. Since I have access to that, they all said it has been around for years and it's pretty safe. They didn't have any real serious side effects that scared me enough not to do it. And I think the effect on my life of the trauma, it was just worth it to me to try it. The initial effects, I woke up and did not feel that heaviness in my chest, that kind of dread, or I don't know what to call it. So that was pretty shocking. The other effects I seemed to notice slowly as things happened. I was driving and typically can get a little road ragey, and that didn't happen. I was able to control my anxiousness that I did feel with using breathing, which I've never been able to do before. I actually noticed my heartbeat, noticed my breath, where before I believe I was such in a heightened state of, I guess, PTSD reaction that I couldn't even notice that my heart was beating that fast. So it's been interesting over the last few months to actually notice sensations in my body that I'm sure were there the entire time. I just couldn't notice them because my heightened anxiety and panic was so high constantly in my body. I've noticed a difference with interpersonal relationships, not getting so upset so quickly, not jumping to conclusions, not going from 0 to 100. A lot of times adoptees have problems with fears about being left or being abandoned, and I used to always see that everywhere. If my partner said something or did something, I would equate, oh, you said this, so this means that, and then you're gonna leave, and then I would spiral. And that has not happened since I had Stella. So that is a huge improvement for me. It's made my life so much different. I can now have calmer conversations, not take things as personally, really just take something in, analyze it, and put it where it needs to be without going off the deep end. I believe it's helped me at work. I don't get as anxious, even though my job is very stressful. I feel like it's just helped me, like I said, what I always wished would happen, which is just taking that edge off of that panic, that fear, that worry. I believe that there's a great need for adoptees to have access to this treatment. Typically, our trauma is not acknowledged in the mental health professions. We're often told we have other diagnosis or labeled with other diagnosis. So we end up growing up feeling like something is wrong with us, trying to figure it out our whole lives, and we can't. And so I believe that this treatment is kind of like a lifesaver if we all can just take that edge off of that trauma, because I believe for adoptees, it affects us at a very deeper level. For a lot of us, it is right after birth. So we don't have like a pre-trauma state like other trauma survivors have. And then if you compact that with abuse, sexual abuse, whatever kind of traumas you can have growing up, not having racial or cultural mirrors, it's like layer upon layer upon layer. So anything that we could do to kind of take that edge off and help us use other modalities is huge. And I believe it would help us immensely. And I know a lot of adoptees who would love to try it. And I think it would also help acknowledge in the mental health field that we do have trauma. It's not just an attachment problem or a trust issue. Separation from mother and child is trauma. It causes changes in the brain. It heightens cortisol levels. So if this can take that edge off, it'll be a game changer for lots of adoptees. I just would encourage anyone, of course, who are adoptees, but anyone with trauma, I would say this is a good option to try. It really has worked for me. I wouldn't volunteer to speak on anything that I didn't try and believe actually worked. And it has been a game changer for me. I would do it again, and I would recommend it to anybody. It's quick and it will allow you to work on yourself, I believe, in ways that you couldn't before. And hopefully that will help all of us learn new ways and just to have a more complete, happier life. And to me, that's worth everything. So I hope definitely we can get it going. I would love to see it covered by insurance, because I think that's a big barrier for most adoptees, and just getting the word out there.